He saw her. A black apron, a tray of cocktails, the strained, polite smile of the service industry. Brody Dean laughed, a loud, barking sound that sliced through the restaurant's chic ambiance. His ex-wife Sloane, the woman who'd cried about her culinary dreams, was a waitress. He'd won. He'd utterly, completely won. He leaned in to tell his fiancée to point and gloat. But then, the restaurant's manager approached her, bowing his head slightly. Brody watched, his laughter catching in his throat, as Sloane handed the man her tray, untied her apron, and revealed the razor-sharp, bespoke power suit beneath. Her posture shifted, the entire restaurant seeming to pivot in her direction. She was not a waitress. She was the one he was here to beg. The ticker on Brody Dean's panoramic office monitor glowed a virulent red. Dean and Archer Capital was bleeding, and the clean, minimalist lines of the 40th floor space suddenly felt less like a fortress and more like a pristine, glass-walled coffin. "The numbers aren't soft, Brody. They're catastrophic," Leo Archer said, his voice tight. Leo, the other name on the door, was the numbers guy, the anchor, the perpetually worried conscience. Brody was the face, the rainmaker, the shark. "It's a correction, Leo. The market's jittery," Brody replied, not turning from the window. He smoothed the lapels of his $8,000 Tom Ford suit. Image was everything. You don't project failure, not even to your partner. "We just need one big injection, one white knight." "A white knight," Leo scoffed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "We need a bailout. That pet project in Singapore. It's a $90 million hole. Your sure thing biotech venture. The FDA just torpedoed it. We're over-leveraged, Brody. We have 30 days before the calls come in, the ones we can't ignore." Brody finally turned. His smile was all teeth, a predatory flash he'd perfected. "Which is why," he said, tapping a folder on his immaculate desk. "I'm not worried. 8 p.m. tonight. L'Etoile, Aura Hospitality Group." Leo blinked. "Aura? They're new money, but they're big money. They've acquired 3 hotel chains and a dozen high-end restaurants in 2 years. They're the talk of the town. How did you even get a meeting?" "I'm Brody Dean," he said, as if that explained everything. "Their CEO is some S. Frost, reclusive, no pictures online. Probably some tech bro who got lucky with an exit and now wants to play hotelier. They're looking to diversify. We," he gestured grandly, "are their diversification. We're going to offer them a significant stake in our portfolio. Offer or beg. It's about the pitch, Leo. Confidence. They're sharks. We're sharks. They just don't know we're bleeding." Brody checked his reflection in the dark monitor. He looked good, powerful, the image of success. "This S. Frost wants to meet at his flagship restaurant, his turf, smart, but I'm better." He buzzed his assistant. "Carla, confirm my 8 p.m. at L'Etoile, table for 4, and get Maya on the line." He picked up the phone, his tone shifting instantly from steel to silk. "Hey, baby. Big night. Wear the red dress. No, the other red dress. The one that makes them stare. Yeah, L'Etoile. It's that new place, impossible to get into. Of course I got a table. I'll see you there. 8 sharp. Leo's coming, so try to be nice." He hung up and tossed the phone onto the desk. Maya Carter was his latest and greatest accessory. A 25-year-old model with an Instagram following that eclipsed the GDP of a small country. She was perfect. She was everything Sloane hadn't been. Sloane. The name tasted like ash. He hadn't thought about her in months, a year. Their divorce had been final for 3. It was messy, not because of assets. He'd made sure she got almost nothing, thanks to a masterful and ruthless legal team, but because she'd been emotional. Pathetic, really. Crying about his emotional abandonment and his gaslighting. She'd had some ridiculous dream of opening what was it? A farm-to-table culinary experience. He'd laughed at her. He'd told her she was a decent home cook. But this was the big leagues. His lawyer had framed her ambitions as a childish fantasy, proof that she had no concept of finance and was unfit to claim any significant portion of his wealth. The judge had agreed. He'd cut her a check for a paltry $50,000, a goodwill gesture, and walked away. He'd heard through the grapevine that she was struggling, working some catering jobs, maybe waitressing. It served her right. She'd tried to claim he'd cheated, which he had, of course, but discretion was another thing money bought. She couldn't prove a thing. "Brody," Leo's voice snapped him back. "You're humming." "Am I?" Brody grinned. "Just thinking about victory, Leo. Tonight we're going to land this fish. This S. Frost won't know what hit him." He grabbed his briefcase, a wave of pure, uncut confidence washing over him. He was Brody Dean. He didn't lose. He didn't fail. He'd cut his ex-wife out of his life like a tumor, and he was about to save his company. Tonight was a celebration. He just knew it. "Try to look like you're not drowning, Leo," Brody said, clapping his partner on the shoulder as he walked out. "It spooks the fish." Leo just watched him go, the red ticker on the screen reflecting in his glasses like a warning. Sloane Frost's office was nothing like Brody's. Where his was a shrine to chrome and cold, hard capitalism, hers was a living, breathing space. Reclaimed wood, soft, warm lighting, and a living wall of green moss and ferns perfumed the air. Her desk overlooked not the financial district, but the vibrant, chaotic pulse of the city's old market, where her suppliers were, right now, loading the day's produce. A-Eura, she'd named it. The A was for her grandmother, Annalise. The Eura was a Japanese concept, the hidden face, the unseen truth. She'd built an empire on that principle. While others bought flashy real estate, she'd bought the supply chains. While they focused on celebrity chefs, she'd invested in farmers and artisans. And while they'd all been fighting for column inches, she'd remained anonymous. S. Frost. A ghost in the machine. Lily Bennett, her COO, and the only person who'd been with her from the beginning, entered without knocking. "He's confirmed. 8 p.m., table 12. He's bringing Archer. And a +1. A Maya Carter." Sloane didn't look up from the quarterly report she was reviewing. "Maya Carter, 25, model, 14.2 million followers, specializes in swimwear and, from what I can tell, being vacuous." "You're enjoying this," Lily said. It wasn't a question. Sloane finally looked up. Her eyes, which Brody remembered as soft and pleading, were now the precise, assessing color of a winter sky. "Enjoying isn't the word, Lily. Savoring is closer." Lily sat, her expression softening. "Sloane, are you sure about this? The uniform?" Sloane stood and walked to the window. She traced the skyline. "He needs to see me, Lily, but first he needs to see what he thinks I am. He needs to believe his own narrative, that I failed, that without him I'm nothing, that I'm reduced to serving men like him." "It's a cruel game, boss." Was it not a cruel game when his lawyer called my business plan a housewife's hobby in a deposition? Sloane's voice was quiet, but it vibrated with a controlled steel resonance. Was it not cruel when he had me followed, trying to prove I was unstable, all while he was sleeping with half of his intern pool? Was it not cruel when he drained our joint account the day before I filed, leaving me to pay my own legal fees with a credit card? She turned back, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. "No, Lily, this isn't a game. This is an audit." She thought back to the woman she had been, the Sloane Dean who believed in Brody, who had foolishly loved him. She'd met him in college. He was the ambitious, charismatic finance major, and she was the quiet, brilliant culinary arts student. He'd loved her food. He'd loved her devotion. He'd loved, she realized too late, that she was an accessory who didn't outshine him. She'd put her dreams on hold. She'd hosted his partners, charmed his clients, proofread his reports. She'd given him the idea for his first big merger, an idea he'd pitched as his own. And all the while, he'd been slowly, methodically eroding her confidence. "A little bake sale, Sloane. It's cute." You're too emotional for business, baby. Leave the number crunching to me. That chef you admire, he's a hack. You're better off at home. The divorce was the fire. The $50,000 was the spark. He'd thought it was an insult. It was, she'd decided, seed money. She'd left New York. She'd gone to Chicago, then Austin, then finally LA. She'd changed her name back to Frost. She'd found her brother, Cameron, the only one who'd ever believed in her. He'd cashed out his own tech stocks and given her $200,000. Don't prove him wrong, Sloane, Cameron had said. Prove you right. And she had. She'd started with one small, struggling restaurant. She'd lived in the apartment above it, working 20-hour days. She didn't just cook. She learned finance. She learned logistics. She learned law. She learned how to be ruthless. She learned to be S. Frost. She bought the restaurant, then another, then the hotel it was in. She poached the best talent. She built Aura not as a company, but as a fortress. And all the while she'd kept a file. A very, very detailed file on Dean and Archer Capital. She knew to the penny how much they were bleeding. She knew it was Brody's recklessness that had done it. And she'd known 6 months ago that he would eventually come to her. Aura was the only new money player in the city with enough liquid capital to save him. The uniform is in my changing room, Sloane said, walking to her private ensuite. Have Mark, the maitre d', seat them at 12 as planned. Tell him to treat them like any other VIP. And tell the kitchen, send out the amuse-bouche I designed this morning, the one with the caviar and the gold leaf. Lily stood. And you? Sloane paused, her hand on the door. I'll be out to take their drink order. Sloane, what if he's changed? What if he's... Sorry. Sloane's smile was sad and utterly devoid of mercy. A man like Brody Dean doesn't change, Lily. He just finds new victims. Tonight, I'm just reminding him I'm not one of them anymore. L'Etoile was a masterpiece of understated power. The room was all muted tones of velvet, old-growth wood and warm, indirect lighting that made everyone look like a film star. The tables were spaced for privacy, the air filled with the quiet murmur of the city's elite and the distant, complex scent of thyme, browned butter and truffle. Wow, Maya Carter breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the room. She was wearing the red dress, a garment that left little to the imagination and was, Brody noted with satisfaction, drawing eyes from every man in the room. This place is expensive. The best, baby, only the best, Brody said, clapping the maitre d' on the back with a familiarity that wasn't returned. Brody Dean, table for 4. We're meeting S. Frost. Of course, Mr. Dean, the maitre d', Mark, said with a seamless professional smile. Ms. Frost is running a few moments behind, but insisted you be seated and made comfortable. Your table is this way. Brody and Leo exchanged a look. Ms. Frost, Leo whispered as they followed. S. Frost, Stephanie, Susan. Who cares? A woman. Even better, Brody whispered back, his confidence swelling. She'll be easier to charm. They were seated at table 12, a prime corner booth with a sweeping view of the city. A waiter instantly filled their water glasses. An amuse-bouche arrived, a single perfect oyster with a dollop of Osetra caviar and a tiny, glistening pearl of yuzu. Maya posted a picture of it before it even hit the table. This, Brody announced, is how you live, Leo. You've got to spend money to make money. Or to get money, Leo muttered, looking nervously at the menu where a steak tartare was listed at $75. And then Brody saw her. She was walking from the service station, a silver tray balanced expertly on one hand. She wore the standard uniform, a simple black blouse, black slacks, and a crisp, floor-length black apron. Her hair was pulled back in a tight, severe bun. She looked tired. She looked exactly as he'd imagined. No, he breathed. He squinted. It couldn't be. What? Leo asked. Brody's breath hitched, and then it erupted. a loud, sharp, barking laugh that cut through the restaurant's elegant hum. Several tables turned to look. Maya looked startled. "Brody, what is it?" He pointed, a full, blatant, rude point. "Look, just look, by the bar. It's her." Leo put on his glasses. His jaw went slack. "Oh my God, is that Sloane?" "Yes." Brody was almost crying with laughter. "My ex-wife, a waitress. Here. Oh, this is perfect. She told me she was a culinary artist, and she's clearing tables at a place I'm about to own a piece of." Maya, catching on, giggled. "Oh, Brody, that's actually really sad for her." "Sad? It's hilarious." Brody was beaming. He felt a vindictive, primal joy. This was the universe confirming his superiority. Sloane approached their table. Her face was a perfect, neutral mask of service. She didn't look at Brody. Not yet. She placed coasters down for each of them. "Good evening," she said, her voice low and professional. "My name is Sloane, and I'll be taking care of you this evening. Can I get you started with something to drink? Perhaps a bottle of champagne?" Brody was staring, his grin plastered on his face. "Sloane, wow, just wow. It is you." Her eyes, cold and clear, finally met his. "Mr. Dean, it's a surprise to see you here." "I'll bet," Brody laughed again. "Times must be tough, huh? Waitressing, really, after all that big talk?" Sloane's expression didn't flicker. "I find the work grounding. Now, about those drinks." "Oh, we'll drink," Brody said, leaning back. "But first you have to tell me, how does it feel, serving me? After, well, you know." He turned to Maya. She really thought she was going to be the next Julia Child. "Brody," Leo said, his voice a strained warning. "Stop it." "What? It's fine. We're old friends." Brody turned his reptilian charm back on Sloane. "Listen, don't worry. I'll tip you well, for old time's sake. Now bring us a bottle of the 96 Dom and, hey," he snapped his fingers as she turned to leave. "Make it quick. We're expecting someone important." Sloane simply nodded. "Of course, sir." She walked away. Brody was vibrating with triumph. "Did you see her face? God, she's hating this. This is the best night of my life." "You're a pig, Brody," Leo said, disgusted. "I'm a winner, Leo. There's a difference." A moment later, Mark, the maitre d', returned to their table. Brody was still chuckling. "Gentlemen, Miss Carter, my apologies for the delay. Miss Frost is ready to see you now." Brody waved a hand. "It's fine, we're in no hurry. Tell him, or her, to take their time. In fact, tell them to send our waitress back over. I want to ask her what's good on the menu." Mark looked genuinely confused. "Sir?" "Sloane, our waitress, my ex. Send her back." "Sir," Mark said, his voice stiffening, "I believe there is a misunderstanding." Right on cue, Sloane returned, but she wasn't carrying a champagne bucket. She was just walking, straight to their table. She stopped beside the maitre d'. "It's quite all right, Mark," Sloane said. Her voice was different. The subservient, quiet tone was gone. This voice had command. "I'll take it from here." Brody's smile faltered. He watched, a knot of confusion tightening in his stomach as Sloane reached behind her back. She slowly, deliberately untied her apron. She folded it once, twice, and handed it to Mark, who took it as if it were a royal regalia. Underneath, she was wearing a navy blue, impossibly chic suit by a designer Brody knew cost 5 figures. A simple string of pearls was at her throat. Her hair, which he'd thought was in a server's bun, was actually a complex, elegant chignon. The posture, the bearing, the aura, it all changed. The tired waitress evaporated. In her place stood a woman radiating such cold, absolute power that the air crackled around her. She smoothed the front of her jacket. Brody's mouth was dry. The laughter was a dead thing in his chest. "Sloane, what? What is this? Some kind of joke?" Sloane looked at him. really looked at him for the first time in 3 years. Her gaze was like a surgeon's scalpel, precise, analytical, and entirely without pity. "Hello, Brody." "Leo." Her eyes flickered to Maya. "Ms. Carter, welcome to L'Etoile, my restaurant." She then turned her gaze fully on Brody, who was frozen, his glass of water halfway to his lips. "I'm S. Frost." Brody's hand spasmed. The glass of water smashed onto the table, ice and water exploding across the white linen. He didn't notice. He was choking, a dry, rasping, gagging sound. His face, which had been flushed with triumph, turned a waxy, bloodless white. Sloane didn't even flinch at the shattered glass. "Your champagne is on the house, Ms. Carter," Sloane said, her voice like silk-wrapped ice. "As for you, gentlemen, my boardroom is upstairs. We have your proposal to discuss, if you still think it's viable." The elevator ride to the penthouse level was silent, but for the sound of Brody Dean's ragged breathing. He was still wet from the spilled water, his suit jacket stained. Leo Archer stood rigid, staring at the numbers on the elevator display as they climbed. Brody looked like a man who had just seen his own ghost. The swagger, the confidence, the predatory charm, it had all evaporated, leaving behind a hollow, terrified shell. The doors opened onto a space that was the antithesis of the warm restaurant below. It was a cavernous boardroom, all glass and steel, dominated by a single 30-foot-long slab of black marble for a table. On the far wall, a multi-panel screen glowed with the Aura Hospitality logo. Lily Bennett stood by the screen, tablet in hand. She looked at the two men with undisguised contempt. "Mr. Dean, Mr. Archer, please sit." Sloane was already at the head of the table, as if she had materialized there. She wasn't looking at them. She was reading a printout. Brody fumbled with his chair. He was still trying to process. "Sloane," he stammered, his voice cracking. "Sloane, this is insane. A waitress? What? Why? Why would you—" "The why is irrelevant to our business, Mr. Dean," Sloane said, not looking up. "I find that occasionally working the floor reminds my staff of my standards, and," she finally lifted her eyes, "it can be illuminating." Brody flinched, remembering his every word. "I'll tip you well. Make it quick." "Pathetic." "Now," Sloane continued, "all business. Your proposal. Lily?" The large screen flickered to life. It wasn't their pitch deck. It was their balance sheet. "Dean and Archer Capital," Lily began, her voice crisp and clear, "is currently leveraged 30-1. You have outstanding notes due in," she checked her tablet. 28 days. Your Singapore venture was a catastrophic failure, and your biotech gamble in, let's see, Gen Next Therapeutics was, as of this morning, declared insolvent. Brody stared, horrified. How did you get that? That's privileged." Sloane leaned forward. "You taught me to always read the fine print, Brody. You just never thought I'd be the one reading yours. When you defaulted on your loan to Eastern Standard Bank last quarter, they sold your debt. I bought it. All of it." Leo Archer, who had been silent, let out a long, slow breath. You own us." "Technically," Sloane corrected, "I own your debt, which means I am your primary creditor, and as such, I'm calling my notes, all $180 million of them, due now." Brody shot to his feet. "You can't. That's not legal. We have 30 days. "You had 30 days. Read the covenant, Brody. Article 4, Section B, the Material Adverse Change Clause. Your chief investor pulling out, which they did yesterday, didn't they? Triggers an immediate demand for payment. I," she smiled, a thin, cold crescent, "am demanding. You, bitch." Brody roared, his terror finally turning to his familiar, ugly rage. "You did this! You set this all up! You planned this!" "I planned for my success, Brody. You orchestrated your own failure," Sloane said, her voice dangerously calm. "You were always a gambler. You just ran out of other people's money to play with. Sloane, Please, Leo cut in, his voice desperate. He shot Brody a look of pure venom. Brody is an idiot, a nostalgic, arrogant, spectacular idiot. My apologies, Ms. Frost, for his behavior then and now. But the firm, the rest of the firm, it's sound. The analysts are good. The infrastructure is solid. It's him. It's his reckless plays. Brody looked at his partner, betrayed. Leo, you're siding with her. I'm siding with reality, Brody, Leo yelled back. You've been lying to me for 6 months. You told me Singapore was stable. You knew we were drowning. Sloane watched the two men, her expression unreadable. She let the silence stretch out, amplifying their panic. Leo is right, she said finally. My audit, she gestured to Lily, shows that the firm's core business is viable, but its leadership is compromised. She stood and walked to the window, looking down at the city lights. So here is my proposal. It's not a bailout, it's an acquisition. She turned back. Aura Hospitality will absorb Dean and Archer's debt. In exchange, Aura will take a 51% controlling interest in the company, effective immediately. Leo looked relieved. It was a lifeline. We accept. What? No! Brody yelled. My name is on the door. You can't just take my company. I can, Sloane said, and I am. But that's not all. My acquisition is contingent on new leadership. Leo, you'll be staying on as president of the new Aura Financial Division. Your salary will be doubled. Leo nodded, sinking into his chair. Thank you, Ms. Frost. Brody, Sloane said, her voice softening just a fraction, you will be resigning. Effective immediately. You will sign over your 49% stake to Aura for the sum of $1 to cover the, let's call them financial irregularities Lily and I found in your expense reports. $1? You're ruining me, he whispered, all the fight gone, replaced by a cold, dawning horror. No, Brody, Sloane said, walking toward him. She stopped just feet from him, forcing him to look at her. To see the woman he'd mocked, the woman who now held his entire life in the palm of her hand. You're not ruined. You're just liquidated. You'll be left with your apartment, which I know is mortgaged to the hilt, and your car. You'll have exactly what I had when you threw me out, minus the $49,999. She tilted her head. It's a more than generous offer, because the alternative is that I don't buy the debt. I let your company collapse. And then I forward my audit, the one detailing your wire fraud and embezzlement, to the SEC, your choice. Brody Dean, the apex predator, the rainmaker, the shark, collapsed into his chair. He put his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking in a dry, silent sob. Lily will show you the documents, Sloane said, turning away. Sign them. She walked to the door. Oh, and Brody. He looked up, his face a mask of tears and humiliation. Welcome to the service industry, she said. It's hell. The elevator ride down was a tomb of silence. Leo got off on the ground floor. He didn't look at Brody. He just said, I'll have my lawyer contact yours. Oh, wait, you can't afford one. I'll have my lawyer contact you. He walked out into the night, a free man. Brody continued down to the garage, a dead man walking. He got into his Maserati, the scent of Italian leather now smelling like a funeral. He'd signed everything. His hands, which had built an empire, had been shaking so badly he could barely hold the pen. His company, his reputation, his everything, gone. Signed away for $1 to the woman he'd laughed at 30 minutes ago. He drove, not to his sleek, empty penthouse, but to Maya's apartment. He needed something, comfort, an ally, someone to tell him he was still Brody Dean. He used his key to let himself in. The apartment was a mess of open suitcases and couture. Maya? She walked out of her bedroom, zipping up a travel bag. She wasn't wearing the red dress. She was in jeans and a jacket. Maya, baby, you won't believe. Don't. Just don't, she said, her voice flat, her eyes cold. She'd been crying, but not for him. They were tears of anger. My phone has been blowing up for an hour. People who were at the restaurant, they saw it, Brody. They saw you laugh. They saw her do that, and they saw you choke. Maya, listen, it's a hostile takeover. It's complicated. She set me up. She owns you, Maya shrieked, her perfectly constructed face twisting. That's what they're saying, that your ex-wife owns you. Do you know what that makes me look like? I was at the table, giggling, like some idiot. You made me look like an idiot. Baby, we can fix this. I have... He stopped. What did he have? You have nothing, she said, grabbing her passport. I just got a text from a friend at Vogue. The Aura Hospitality Group just became the majority sponsor for the Met Gala. She is co-chairing with Anna Wintour. She's... And I'm the idiot who was on a date with the guy she just crushed. So, what? You're leaving? He asked, his voice small. I have a flight to Milan in 3 hours. A friend is waiting. She walked to the door. But what about us? She turned, and for the first time he saw something real in her eyes. Pity. There is no us, Brody. There was just you. And the you I signed up for. The one with the car, the penthouse, the American Express black card. He doesn't exist anymore. That man just died upstairs in that boardroom. She opened the door. Goodbye, Brody. Don't call me. I'll have my assistant send for the rest of my things. The door clicked shut. He was alone. He drove aimlessly, the city lights blurring through his tears. He finally went home to his sterile, glass-walled apartment. The view of the city, which had always made him feel like a king, now felt like a billion accusing eyes. He poured a scotch, then another. He looked at himself in the mirror. The Tom Ford suit was stained and wrinkled. His eyes were bloodshot. The mask was gone. He sank to the floor, the empty glass in his hand. The anger was gone. The terror was gone. All that was left was a vast, hollow, suffocating emptiness. He flashed back, not just to his mockery in the restaurant, but to everything. Sloane, age 22, meticulously plating a coq au vin in their tiny first apartment kitchen, her face flushed with passion. It's just dinner, Sloane. Don't be so dramatic. Sloane, age 25, showing him a business plan for a small bistro. He'd used the back of it to write down golf scores. Sloane, age 28, the night her father died. He'd been irritated, truly irritated, that he had to cancel a trip to Vegas for the funeral. He'd consoled her by telling her they'd go shopping when she felt better. He remembered her face in the lawyer's office, the way she'd looked when his lawyer had called her unambitious. She hadn't been angry. She'd been gone, a shell. He'd done that. He'd hollowed her out. And then, tonight, the waitress, the apron, the suit. It hadn't just been a takedown. It had been a resurrection. She'd been reborn. And in the process, she'd shown him exactly what he was. Not a shark, not a king. He was just a bully, a small, empty man who had built a life on a foundation of other people's pain. And now, the bill had come due. He smashed the glass against the wall, but the sound gave him no release. He slid down the wall, and for the first time since he was a child, Brody Dean truly and completely wept. The victory didn't feel like victory. Sloane stood barefoot in her penthouse, the real one, above l'Etoile, watching the sun rise. The adrenaline of the night had faded, leaving a familiar, metallic taste in her mouth. She had won. She had taken everything from him. She had humiliated him, broken him, and exposed him. She had done exactly what she'd sworn to herself she would do 3 years ago, sitting in that sterile lawyer's office. So why did she feel so empty? The door chimed. She didn't have to guess who it was. It's open, Cam. Cameron Frost, her older brother, walked in. He was the opposite of her cultivated polish. He wore a rumpled t-shirt, cargo shorts, and a concerned expression. He was a programming genius who'd made his fortune by 30 and now spent his time funding animal shelters and, as he put it, keeping his sister from becoming a Bond villain. He handed her a coffee. "Lily called me. Said you unleashed the Kraken." Sloane accepted the cup. "She's dramatic." "Is she? I also got 6 texts from people I haven't heard from in years. Your sister just detonated Brody Dean. Sloane Frost is my new god. Holy—" "I get it," Sloane said, cutting him off. She sat on the sofa, pulling a blanket around her. "It's done." "So, the victory lap. Why do you look like you just lost a dog?" Cam sat across from her. Sloane stared into her coffee. "I thought seeing him choke, seeing that arrogant smirk wiped off his face, I thought it would feel good. I thought it would heal something." "And it didn't?" "It did," she admitted, her voice small. "For a second, when I took off that apron, I felt like I could breathe, all the air he'd stolen from me for 10 years. I took it all back in one breath. But then, in that boardroom, when he was shouting, and then when he just crumpled, he looked so pathetic, Cam. Small, all that power, all that master of the universe crap. It was just a costume, as much as my apron was." "A costume he used to hurt you, Sloane, to break you," Cam said, his voice hardening. "Don't you dare feel sorry for him. I was the one who had to pick you up. Remember, I was the one who held you while you cried for a week, not because he'd left, but because he'd made you believe you were nothing, that your dreams were cute. Remember that?" "Cute. I remember," she whispered. "That man told you to your face that your only value was being on his arm. He told you your culinary degree was useful for dinner parties. He didn't just cheat on you, Sloane. He systematically tried to lobotomize your ambition. He's not pathetic. He's a monster. You didn't kill him. You just showed him a mirror." "What's the difference?" she asked, looking up at him, her eyes shining. "I used his own tactics. I waited. I was patient. I found his weakness, and I struck. I destroyed him. I did it clinically. I enjoyed it." "What does that make me?" Cam leaned forward, his expression intense. "It makes you a survivor. It makes you a Frost. Dad always said never start a fight, but you'll be damned if you don't finish it. You finished it." He sighed, his tone softening. "The difference, Slow, is why. He did it for his ego, to feel big. You did it. You did it to be free. You had to prove to yourself that you weren't the person he'd made you believe you were." Sloane nodded, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. I don't want to be a person who enjoys the suffering of others. Even him." "You're not," Cam said firmly. "You're a person who is finally acknowledging her own power. You're the CEO. You own his company. You own his debt. The question isn't, what does this make you? The question is, what are you going to do now, S. Frost?" She looked at him, the first stirrings of a new, healthier purpose dawning. "Aura Financial. Leo Archer is staying on. He's decent, just weak. A good combination for you. You can direct him," Cam said. And I'm going to use it. That firm, it was a parasite. It just took. I'm going to make it give. I'm going to create a fund, a venture capital fund for hospitality startups." Cam smiled, a real proud smile. "Oh? A fund," Sloane said, her voice gaining strength, "specifically for female-led, minority-led businesses, the ones all the Brody Deans of the world laugh at, the cute little ideas. I'm going to give them rocket fuel." Cam leaned back. "There she is. That's the S. Frost I know. Not the one who wears an apron as a weapon. The one who builds an empire and then gives away the keys." Sloane stood, the blanket falling away. She felt lighter. The hollowness was gone, replaced by a new fire. It wasn't the acid burn of revenge. It was the warm, steady glow of purpose. "Go get some sleep, Cam. I've got a company to restructure." "Aye, aye, boss," he said, giving her a mock salute. As he left, he paused at the door. Sloane, I'm proud of you. Not for ruining him, but for surviving him. 1 week later, Sloane was sitting in Brody's old office. She'd had it completely redone. The cold chrome and black leather were gone, replaced with the same warm woods and living greenery as her own office. It was no longer the lair of a predator. It was the workspace of a creator. She and Leo Archer, along with a team of forensic accountants, were neck-deep in the books of the newly minted Aura Financial. It's worse than we thought, Miss Frost, one of the accountants said, pushing his glasses up his nose. Call me Sloane, David. And worse, how? He wasn't just over-leveraged, David said, pointing to a screen. He was actively committing wire fraud, moving money between shell corporations to hide losses from his investors. And from Mr. Archer. Leo, who was at the table, looked ill. He was stealing from me? He was using your capital account as a slush fund to pay off personal markers, sir. It looks like nearly $1.2 million over the last 18 months. He was cooking the books, brilliantly, I might add. If the market hadn't turned, he might have gotten away with it for years. He was going to let you take the fall with him, Mr. Archer. When the SEC finally looked, your signature is on half of these transfers. Leo went pale. I thought they were for the Singapore venture. He told me it was capital calls. It was, Sloane said quietly. Just capital for his calls. Lily Bennett, who had been cross-referencing files, looked up. Sloane, we can ruin him. I mean prison. This is a 5 to 10 situation, minimum. This isn't just a corporate takedown anymore. This is a criminal case. Sloane looked at the evidence. It was all there, a neat, tidy package of Brody's destruction. All she had to do was make one phone call. To the SEC, to the DA. He would be arrested. He would be tried. He would be jailed. It was justice, wasn't it? She thought of the man in the boardroom, crumpled and sobbing. She thought of the man who'd complained about her father's funeral. Sloane? Leo asked, his voice shaking. What do we do? Before she could answer, her assistant's voice came over the intercom. Ms. Frost, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Dean is in the lobby. He's demanding to see you. He says it's an emergency. Sloane looked at Lily, at Leo, at the evidence on the screen. Send him up. Sloane, are you sure? Lily asked. He's probably unstable. I'm sure. I want to see his face when I make this decision. A few minutes later, the door opened. It wasn't the Brody Dean from the restaurant. It wasn't even the sobbing wreck from the boardroom. This was a different man. He was disheveled, unshaven, and his eyes were wild with a new kind of terror. He was wearing the same suit he'd worn a week ago, now hopelessly stained. He smelled of scotch. Sloane, he said, his voice a dry rasp. You have to help me. Help you? Sloane asked, her voice dangerously neutral. The bank. They called my mortgage on the penthouse. They're taking it, and the car. It was all tied to the company. As collateral. I have nothing, Sloane. Nothing. They're locking me out tomorrow. He looked around the office, his old office. You did this. No, Brody, Sloane said, standing. You did this. You leveraged everything you had, personally and professionally, on a house of cards. The house blew down. I own the land now. Please, he begged, and the sound was grotesque. He fell to his knees, a full, pathetic, desperate genuflection. Sloane, please, don't let me be homeless. I'll do anything. I'll work for you, for free. I'll be your assistant. Anything. Leo looked away, disgusted. Lily just stared, her arms crossed. Sloane walked over to him, looming over him. This was it, the absolute final moment of power. The ultimate humiliation. She looked down at the man who had called her dreams cute. Get up, Brody. He looked at her, confused. What? Get up. On your feet. I will not be begged to." He slowly, shakily got to his feet. He was a broken, pathetic thing. "You're right," she said. "I can help you." A flicker of desperate hope lit his eyes. "You can?" "Yes, I have this." She tapped the screen. "A file. A very detailed file that proves you committed multiple federal crimes. I can call the district attorney. They will, I'm sure, be very interested, and that would solve your housing crisis. You'd have a home, a small one, for 5 to 10 years. His face went from hope to ashen horror in a millisecond. "No, Sloan, please, it was just moving money. I was going to pay it back." "You were going to let Leo go to prison with you," she said, her voice like a whip crack. He had no answer. She studied him, the great Brody Dean, a common thief, a coward. "I'm not going to send you to prison, Brody." He almost collapsed again, this time in relief. "Oh, God, Sloan, thank you, thank you. I'm not doing it for you," she said, cutting him off. "I'm doing it for me. I don't want your name attached to mine, even in a trial. I don't want to spend one more second of my life thinking about you. My revenge is over. Now it's just business." She went to her desk. "But I'm not going to save you either." She pointed to Leo. "You are going to walk over to that man. You are going to tell him, detail by detail, how you stole from him and how you were going to let him take the fall. You are going to apologize, not to me, to him." Brody looked at Leo, who was staring at him with pure, undiluted hatred. This was, in many ways, worse than prison. "And then," Sloan continued, "you're going to sign this. It's a full confession. I will keep it. It's my insurance. If you ever try to enter the world of finance again, if you ever so much as use your name to apply for a business loan, I will release it. You are done." What will I do?" he whispered. "How will I live?" Sloan walked to the door and opened it. "I don't care. You're going to start over, from nothing, with no name, no reputation, and no money. You're going to find out for the first time in your life if there's any you under that suit." She looked at him one last time. "You're going to do exactly what I had to do. The $50,000 you gave me? I'm wiring it back to you. Consider it seed money. Now apologize to Leo, and then get out of my building." 1 year later, the grand ballroom of the L'Etoile Hotel, Sloan's hotel, was glittering. It was the first annual Aura Future Fund gala. Sloan, in a stunning deep green gown, stood at the podium. "We are here tonight," she said, her voice warm and confident, echoing through the room, "to celebrate the people who are usually told no. We are here to fund the cute ideas. We are here to invest in the little hobbies that are, in fact, the future of this industry." The room, filled with the city's new and old elite, erupted in applause. At a front table, Leo Archer, now the impeccably dressed and very successful president of Aura Financial, raised his glass. Cameron Frost, in a rented tux he clearly hated, gave his sister 2 thumbs up. Sloan's company was more than successful. It was thriving. By merging the VC firm's infrastructure with her hospitality expertise, she'd created a new, ethical, and wildly profitable business model. She wasn't just building restaurants, she was funding a new generation of entrepreneurs, mostly women, who had been overlooked by the Brody Deans of the world. She was happy, she was respected, and she was, finally, at peace. She had built her empire not on the ashes of his, but on a new foundation entirely. After the speech, as she mingled, she felt a strange, familiar prickle on her neck. She looked toward the back of the ballroom, past the lights and the laughing guests, to the service corridor. A man was standing there in the shadows, holding a bus tub full of dirty glasses. He was thinner, much thinner. The expensive suits were gone, replaced by a simple black-on-black server's uniform. His hair was shorter, his face lined with a fatigue that wasn't from scotch, but from hard physical labor. He looked older. It was Brody. He wasn't there to see her. He was working. He was on the catering staff for the event. He was bussing tables. He saw her looking. His body went rigid, as if bracing for a blow or a laugh. Sloane simply looked at him. There was no anger. There was no triumph. There was nothing. Just a quiet acknowledgement. Brody held her gaze for a long, heavy second. The din of the party faded. In that moment, he saw her, not as the waitress, not as his victim, not as his conqueror, but as Sloane Frost, a universe unto herself. He did not smile. He did not beg. He just nodded. A single, small, respectful nod. An acknowledgement of her world and his new, small place in it. Then he turned, disappearing with his tub of glasses into the clatter and steam of the kitchen. Sloane learned later, through a quiet inquiry from Lily, what had become of him. The $50,000 was gone. He'd used it to pay off the first 6 months of his mountain of personal debt. He'd lost the penthouse. He'd lost the car. He'd done a 90-day program for his drinking. He'd tried to get a job in finance, but Sloane's insurance had done its work. The name Brody Dean was poison. So he'd started over, from zero. He'd gotten a job as a dishwasher at a diner in the suburbs. He was now, a year later, a busser for a high-end catering company. He lived in a small one-bedroom apartment over a laundromat. He was, as Lily had put it, just a guy who's tired and quiet and pays his rent on time. He was, for the first time, living an honest life. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was a real one. He was finally paying his dues. Sloane turned back to the party, a genuine, unburdened smile on her face. A young chef, the first recipient of her fund, was rushing over to thank her, her eyes bright with tears and opportunity. Sloane had not just taken her life back. She'd built a new one, and in her world there was no room for ghosts. She was free. That was the story of Brody Dean and Sloane Frost. A story of how the deepest betrayals can forge the strongest new beginnings, and how true power isn't about humiliating your enemies, but about having the strength to build a better world without them. Sometimes the person you underestimated the most is the one who ends up owning the entire building. What did you think of Sloane's ultimate revenge? Was it justice or mercy? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved this story, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more emotional and dramatic true-to-life stories just like this one.